Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and we have a great show for you today. First, the physical evidence builds against Luigi Mangione, and guess what? He may have worked his way out of the will or the trust for his family money. There was a meeting between the judge and the defense attorneys in the Bryan Kohberger matter. A former Georgia prosecutor is charged for playing favorites. We have a case of modern-day cattle rustling, ladies and gentlemen. Scammers, they will always go after the vulnerable. And as you go into the malls and look for that parking spot and things are crowded, ask yourself, is that parking spot worth going to prison for? A middle schooler, wait till you hear this, a middle schooler traps his pedo teacher. We have this day in legal history and our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
Hi, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. This is Crime Talk, and my name is Scott Reich. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you do. Leave me a comment below and hit that little bell for notifications. And yes, you can find us on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Now, you helped us get over the 275,000 mark. Let's see if we can get to 300,000 before the end of the year. Is that too much to ask for? I don't think so, ladies and gentlemen. You can do it. We appreciate you. We know you can help us out. All right, let's go ahead and get to the docket for December 12th of 2024. And first on the docket, that's right, Luigi Mangione. The New York Police Department said that it has determined that the gun found in the possession of Luigi Mangione, the suspect in the killing of the UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson, guess what? It matches casings found at the scene of the shooting last week in Manhattan. Not looking good for Mangione. Now, in a brief response to questions at the end of an unrelated afternoon press conference, the New York Police Department Commissioner Jessica Tisch said the police got the gun in question back from Pennsylvania, and it's now at the crime lab. They were able to match the gun to the 3 shell casings that were found in Midtown at the scene of the homicide. The lab was also able to match the persons of interest fingerprints with the fingerprints that were found on both the water bottle and the Kind bar packaging near the scene of the homicide in Midtown. Now, Mangione is in custody in Pennsylvania on a weapons and forgery charge, and he is going to fight extradition back to New York, where he faces charges of second-degree murder and firearm charges as well. Now, as Mangione was being escorted into the courthouse the other day, he was heard yelling out to reporters that sounded like an insult to the American people. But his attorney says, hey, he was really upset, not at the American people, but the fact that he hadn't had a conversation or an appearance with an attorney as of yet. That was the nature of the outburst. Now, like we said in the intro, Mr. Mangione comes from a very prominent Baltimore area family that has at one point or another had significant holdings in various country clubs, nursing homes, and even a radio station or two. And this young man kind of had a life of privilege. He was able to go to an Ivy League school, the University of Pennsylvania, where he graduated with a degree in engineering, not only as a undergrad, but as a graduate degree in computer science, focusing on artificial intelligence. Now, there's been a lot of speculation surrounding his motives in part, and what is some people are making him out to be some sort of a populist hero on a righteous crusade against the wealthy and the insurance companies. Now, his digital footprint, however, is a little more complicated, which shows interests which appear to include fitness and philosophy. And then on an online book review account, he is quoted as assessing the manifesto of Unabomber Ted Kaczynski as impossible to ignore how many of his predictions about modern-day society turned out to be true. Now, although Mangione apparently lived a somewhat life of luxury or leisure, I don't know, sounds like his parents made him work hard, went to all the right schools, so to speak. But guess what? He may be cut out of the will. That's right. Luigi Mangione's grandmother left behind tens of millions of dollars to her family, but there's a strong chance old Luigi is going to be X'd out of that will after being charged with murder. So Luigi's grandmother was a philanthropist and left behind an estate worth at least anywhere between $30 to $100 million to be distributed among her 10 children. Now, the documents insinuate that the number might be much higher, like I said, between 30 to 100 million, but maybe even greater, though it doesn't say the exact amount that she left behind. So unfortunately for old Luigi, he might have cut himself out of the chunk of the family fortune. Now, since the money was put in a trust, there's obviously a trustee, one of whom is Luigi's father, Louis. Well, he has the power to make distributions, but there's a specific provision in the trust about being charged with a crime that could seemingly prevent him from getting a penny. The trustee can withhold the money if the person who would have received the money had been charged, indicted, convicted, or pleads guilty to a felony. Now, obviously, weapons charges, murder, felony equals possibly no dollars. That's right. It's always about the money, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Now, not only does the trust give the trustee the power to remove someone from the will, it is particularly clear that old Mary Mangione wanted to cut off any of the heirs charged with a heinous or violent crime, saying she had a strong wish that the benefit of the doubt is not to be given to the individual. So, old Grandma Mangione doesn't have time for ne'er-do-wells, apparently. Anyway, the trust was only recently been probated, so it's unclear what the trustee will do, but it looks like it doesn't look too good for old Luigi Mangione. Now, the Mangione family has remained largely quiet about his arrest, other than a short statement saying, that their heart goes out to the death of Mr. Thompson. On the weirder side, Luigi Mangione's supporters have launched a legal fund raising at least $35,000 for him at this point. And these people are somewhat obsessed with this guy. And apparently they now have a mailing address for old Luigi, and they're going to ask him what he would like them to do with the money that they have raised for his defense. Now, there's been some reports that the family is out there trying to hire an attorney for both Pennsylvania as well as the case in New York. Yes, they do have a few bucks, but are they going to waste the family fortune, so to speak, on a defense of this case where even if you think it's justified, which really there's no real justification for killing somebody, particularly shooting him in the back, which is a little bit cowardly, well, really cowardly, and I don't know, it's not looking good. He's all but confessed in his manifesto. It's not a whodunit, but guess what? He's going to get the fan club. He's going to get all the girls throwing themselves at him. Just the typical pattern we see in today's world. I don't get it, ladies and gentlemen, but hey, if that's what you want to talk about, we'll bring it to you. Then we got old Bryan Kohberger. That's right. He's obviously charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. He's accused of fatally stabbing the University of Idaho students, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Zana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, in their house there in Moscow, Idaho, back in November of 2022. So Kohberger's legal team was to attend a closed hearing remotely on Wednesday to present arguments to the judge on apparently several motions. Now, if you may recall, at the last motions hearing, the attorneys for Kohberger said, we need to talk with the judge, and it's going to be ex parte as it relates to funding of experts. So we'll not know for certain unless a minute order or something comes out, but more than likely that is what's taking place. Now, like I said, in the notice of the hearing, the defense said it would make oral arguments in support of the ex parte motions in front of the Judge Stephen Hippler, who's now presiding over the case. Now, for those who don't know, an ex parte motion is a legal request presented to the courts by one party without the other party being present, which is why it makes sense that it's not in their arguing legal motions related to the case. It's regarding their funding for experts and things of that nature, and possibly scheduling as well. As you may recall from the last hearing, apparently one of their defense witnesses, I believe it actually passed away, so they were kind of starting again, which was going to take some more time. And so we'll see what comes of that if the court date gets reset because of scheduling issues and expert witness issues. Like I said, that's we don't know because it's ex parte, but we're making a deduction there. Anyway, the defense also filed a motion on November 26 to seal the defense amended memorandum and exhibits supporting the Franks hearing. The Franks hearing is held to determine whether an affidavit used to obtain a search warrant contains inaccurate information. As you may recall, Ann Taylor, Kohberger's lead attorney, said she filed the motion because the documents contain facts and statements that might threaten or endanger the life or safety of the individuals. Now, she said sealing the documents would help ensure that Kohberger also has a right to a fair trial, and disclosing the information that's supposedly incorrect would create an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. The prosecution didn't object to that motion, therefore it was put under seal. Now, Hippler had ordered the defense to amend their motion. He said the defense filed 38 exhibits with over 2,000 pages in those exhibits. And he said, unfortunately, defendant's memorandum largely fails to identify with particularity the relevant portions of the exhibits, instead referring simply to the exhibit number without identifying the precise page at issue. Thus, the court is left with an unenviable task of sifting through pages and pages of largely irrelevant documents to ascertain what portion the defendant was supposedly referring to. So basically, go back and do it again and tell me what the hell I'm supposed to be looking at, is what the judge said. All right, now Kohberger remains in custody at the old Ada County jail, and he is facing, obviously, the death penalty if he is convicted. We'll keep bringing you that news as well, ladies and gentlemen. Next, the prosecutor charged for not playing fair. So do you remember this district attorney, the former Georgia district attorney, who appeared in court Wednesday for the first time since she was accused of putting a thumb on the scales of justice in favor of the defendants accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery? If you may recall, remember this case back in Savannah, Georgia, a black jogger that was chased down and murdered in a coastal neighborhood back in 2020. Well, Jackie Johnson was the district attorney for the Brunswick Judicial District at the time and ultimately recused herself because one of the defendants was a former investigator that worked with her in her office, and she was quite familiar with him. Anyway, she was indicted more than a year later on the charge of violating her oath of office and hindering an investigation. She lost her bid for re-election some 2 months later, and among other items in the indictment, Johnson was accused of telling law enforcement on the scene not to arrest the man who pulled the trigger on Arbery, which was Travis McMichael, the son of her former investigator. Now, the arrests of the three defendants were ultimately made by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation with no involvement from the local prosecutor's office. Now, as she tried to have the case dismissed, prosecutors presented evidence that she communicated with her former investigator, Gregory McMichael, 15 times about the case, including after the time in which she had recused herself. Now, Mr. McMichael, his son, and a neighbor, a guy by the name of William Bryan Jr., was convicted on a variety of charges, including a federal hate crime charge. Bryan filmed the chase and shooting, and the footage shows Travis McMichael shooting the unarmed Mr. Arbery with a shotgun after blocking him with his truck. All three of them were convicted in November of 2021 on charges of felony murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment. Travis McMichael was convicted of an additional count of malice murder. The father and son were sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, and Mr. Bryan was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Now, in early 2022, the three men were found guilty on federal charges of attempted kidnapping and a hate crime with the specifically interference with Mr. Arbery's rights. The McMichaels were convicted of an additional federal count of using firearms in a crime of violence. Now, Johnson appeared in court just yesterday for a pretrial hearing, and the trial itself is expected to begin next month. It was delayed largely because her defense attorney, Brian Steele, was tied up with a trial for another client, Jeffrey Williams, the Atlanta rapper known as Young Thug, who recently pled no contest to firearms and other charges and was sentenced to credit for time served and 15 years probation. Mr. Steele argued in court that Johnson was not really paying attention to the Arbery matter case because she was hyper-focused on the prosecution of the former Glynn County police chief and his drug unit on corruption charges. Now, the Georgia Supreme Court dismissed those charges earlier this year. Now, Steele also told the court that he wanted to call the Georgia Attorney General, Chris Carr, who plans to run for governor, as a witness in this case. Now, Carr ultimately transferred prosecution of the case to Cobb County District Attorney's Office in light of the allegations made against Johnson and others in her office. Going to be interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Never seen a prosecutor charged like that for not fulfilling their duties as a prosecutor of enforcing the law. I mean, obviously the local police must have said, hey, this isn't right. And that's how that case came out. We followed it quite closely, the case of McMichaels. I don't believe we even brought you the whole trial. But they were wrong. They were totally wrong. And whether they thought the guy was robbing the house, it doesn't really matter. You don't get to chase somebody down and then shoot them in cold blood. Tragic case for sure. Now, something I'm sure you have all been worried about, and that is modern day cattle rustling. But I got a story for you. Investigators are working to determine if nearly 200 cattle that were reported missing in the southwestern part of Colorado, specifically in Montrose, were stolen. That's right. The Montrose County Sheriff's Office said roughly 180 cattle are not accounted for by a number of ranchers when they were put out for grazing during the summer. Now, the sheriff said you can always lose some cattle to predators or to accidents, to poisonous weeds, things like that. But 180 is just far more than normal, said the sheriff there, Chuck Searcy. It's hard to believe that there are 180 cattle up on that plateau, as much snow is up there right now. And these ranchers who ride and do their due diligence to find their cattle, and they're just simply not finding them. That leads us to believe that something nefarious has happened to those cows. Now, Sheriff Searcy said the livestock theft is usually minimal in Montrose County, thank God. Anyway, investigators have a large area to search, as the area estimated that they're looking for is about 75,000 acres. It's pretty large. It's all open to public land, and that's where these cattle were apparently. So they have to use it, look at it as actual crime scene, if you will. And now a majority of that is buried under snow. Now, the sheriff did say that most of the 180 missing cattle are all calves, and he estimates a total loss in the area of some $300,000 to $400,000. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the West. You don't touch another man's cattle, all right? Now, I've said, and I went back and looked it up when I was reviewing this, I tried to research what year did we still allow hanging for stealing a man's cattle. Well, apparently we didn't, so I was wrong. I admit it. But vigilantes were known to hang cattle rustlers if they were found with another man's cattle. That's like being with another man's wife, ladies and gentlemen. Be careful. Keep your hands off the cattle, all right? Not to mention, hey, if you've been watching Yellowstone, we know how hard it is for those cattle ranchers to make a living. And it's even harder when people are trying to steal all their little calves, totaling $400,000. Where is Colorado Bureau of Investigation? This is probably on federal lands as well, possibly. Where's the FBI? We need resolution to this. Don't worry about those UFOs flying off the coast of New Jersey. That's nothing. We need cattle rustling solved here in Colorado, ladies and gentlemen. Next, scammers will be scammers. And meet this scammer, Mr. Weikai Zhang. So apparently, Mr. Zhang was posing through a call center as someone trying to help individuals. And he convinced the victim that her computer had a virus and that they could help fix it. Then the scammers gained control and the financial information and persuaded the woman to liquidate her savings and put it into gold, which was sold through a broker and then shipped. And then about 11:30 a.m. on the morning that the shipping company was supposed to deliver multiple boxes to the residence, guess what? Picked up, the scammers did. Homeland Security special agents and the Ocala Police Department arrived at the residence of the victim and informed her about the scam. Later, the scammers contacted the victim to verify the arrival of the parcel and notified her that a courier was on the way to secure the gold. Cops said that law enforcement noticed a suspicious van in the area. It was registered to Mr. Zhang, who, of course, had a suspended license and expired tags. Of course he did. Anyway, they detained Zhang, who had no local ties and who was on a live call and was using GPS to get the woman's home address. Now, Zhang is charged with grand theft of $100,000 or more, unlawful use of a two-way communication device to facilitate a felony, and driving under a suspended license. Now, he is booked back into jail, and he was booked into jail and released the following day. So here's, ladies and gentlemen, If a scammer calls you and says, I want you to sell everything and we're going to liquidate it, everything, put it into gold, right? And then the gold's going to be delivered. These scammers are going to be there to pick up the gold and you get nothing. And they're going to say, oh, what didn't happen? So don't do that. Now, don't get me wrong. I say buy gold. I don't get paid to say that. Buy gold. Do it myself, ladies and gentlemen. That's your hedge against inflation. Go do it. But go do it yourself. Don't do it over the phone with a scammer. Okay? There's your good legal advice of the day. Common sense. All right. It's the holiday season. Everyone is out doing their Christmas shopping. You go to the mall. Of course, there's no place to park. You get angry. You get frustrated. You know, the wife, your spouse is sitting there next to you. Why can't you find a parking spot? Do we need to park this far out? Ask yourself, if that parking spot is there between you and another person, let it go. Is that parking spot really worth going to prison for? Because let me give you an example. A Texas man is now behind bars after he allegedly killed an 80-year-old veteran during a fight over a parking spot. That's right. So Anthony Ray Boyce is facing the charge of murder in the death of Earl Hollins. And according to the arrest affidavit, Hollins was backing into a parking space at a grocery store in Houston. Boyce was trying to park, and then the two men got out of their vehicles and started arguing. Boyce allegedly then punched Hollins in the face, causing him to fall and hit the back of his head on the pavement. Hollins was rushed to the hospital, where he died over the weekend. Now, Boyce drove away from the scene in his Ford F-150, but was later arrested and charged with aggravated assault. The charges got upgraded after Mr. Hollins' death. Detectives initially thought that the incident was a robbery gone bad, but further investigation revealed there was a fight. But the investigators believe the two may have known each other prior to the incident, as both frequent the grocery store. Now, Mr. Boyce is being held currently on a $200,000 bond, but that more than likely is going to increase because of the murder charge. Yes, think about that, ladies and gentlemen. And did he intend to kill the person? No. Is it probably even a second-degree murder? No. Is it a reckless manslaughter? Yes. Right? You recklessly do something. You get into a fight. Criminally negligent, maybe even if the guy. But I've seen this happen all the time. It usually happens in bar fights. Somebody has a glass jaw. Boom. Right? You see all the videos, people going down on the internet. They get hit in the jaw. Boom. They just hit their head, have an aneurysm. It's just not good. Not good for a parking spot, right? You're going to spend your Christmas and probably the rest of your life in prison. Ladies and gentlemen, let it go. Let it go. Next, I love this. A middle schooler traps his teacher. That's right. A middle school boy trapped his pedophile teacher by pretending to be a 14-year-old girl after his sixth grade female friend said the teacher sent her an uncomfortable message. So the W. Huron middle school teacher, a guy by the name of Zachary Kaberbeck, was arrested after a male student baited him into sending some inappropriate pictures on Snapchat. The boy's 12-year-old female friend confided in the boy that her teacher, Kaberneck, had added her on Snapchat and sent her messages that made her feel uncomfortable. The boy then made his own Snapchat account and catfished the teacher by pretending to be a 14-year-old girl named Kate and used a photo that he found on Pinterest. Oh, so only 4 more years, the sixth grader said. With a winky face, he sent more sexual messages before sending inappropriate pictures of the teacher. Anyway, this middle schooler then shared the evidence with his parents, who then alerted the police. Kaberneck now faces multiple charges of sexual exploitation of a minor, as well as solicitation of a minor. Can you say going to prison? Why is it always the school teachers? Why? Because that's where the kids are, ladies and gentlemen. Be careful who is around your kids. Please be careful. I'm telling you, as someone who's practiced criminal defense for 30 years, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not telling you this to be funny. I'm not telling you this. I'm telling you because as a member of the community, I want your kids to be safe. Be very careful who is around your children, okay? And a lot of times, why do people take positions where they get to be around children? I'll let you fill in the blank there, ladies and gentlemen, because that's where the kids are, right? That's what they're doing. So be careful. be careful. Next, this day in legal history. First, December 12th, right? John Jay. This is going back to December 12th, 1745. John Jay, the first Chief Justice of the state of New York, the co-author of the Federalist Papers, and the first Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, was born on this day in 1745. Now, also on December 12th, 1787, Pennsylvania ratifies the U.S. Constitution, and Pennsylvania then became the second state to ratify the Constitution. On December 12th, 1800, the Washington, D.C. was officially established as the capital of the United States. And in 1963, Frank Sinatra Jr. Was safely released after his father paid the $240,000 ransom demanded by kidnappers. And then in 1978, on this day, a trial began related to the political assassination attempt against San Francisco Supervisor Harvey Milk and Mayor George Moscone. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Next, our dumb criminal of the day. A Massachusetts man got himself stuck inside a chimney while trying to evade police officers Tuesday night. Apparently couldn't get up the old chimney like old St. Nick. Officers with the Fall River Police Department attempted to conduct a raid of the man's home in the small New England town, only to be led on a chase. As the cops knocked on the front door, they saw two men fleeing the home via the roof. One leapt off the roof, while the other, a guy by the name of Robert Langlis, our dumb criminal, hopped down the chimney and becoming stuck in the chimney and required assistance of the very detectives he was trying to flee. You can hear the police officers on the body cam saying, "You're an idiot," while holding a flashlight as the camera's looking down on old Langus, wedged inside the base of the chimney. Now, the officers also confirmed that the suspect was in fact stuck, but able to breathe, while they called for the fire department to come and rescue him. The man in the chimney kept saying, "Get me out of here, bro." Anyway, firefighters can be seen on the video taking the chimney apart brick by brick from inside as Mr. Langus waited to ultimately be taken into custody. Now, the other one party jumped off the roof and then into a car. Still remains at large. Mr. Langus, you are a dumb criminal of the day. Congratulations. Maybe lose a few pounds. Maybe find a bigger chimney. Don't evade the cops. All kinds of life lessons can be learned here, sir. But one is for certain. You are a dumb criminal of the day. A title many seek, but only you have bestowed upon you, sir. That's all we have for today. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk. And remember, the Constitution matters.